Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. In today's review I'm going to give you my more considered thoughts on Assassin's Creed Valhalla. I created a first impressions gameplay showcase for the PS4, which actually surprised me. I wasn't expecting so many people to find value in it. I received a number of comments and questions which I felt were worth some time for me to address, so stick with me for a few minutes. This review will include my thoughts on the game overall, including the gameplay, story setting, lore, mechanics and gameplay loop. I will also discuss some things I don't like so much about the game and some issues I found specifically when it comes to the basic PS4 performance. I'm using the standard PS4 for this review, so those comments in particular may not be applicable for PS4 Pro users or for those of you lucky enough to have a PS5. If you enjoy the video or find it useful, please consider leaving me a like or comment, it really helps the channel growth. Okay, so let's get started. Assassin's Creed Valhalla is set in 873 AD. The game covers the story during the Viking invasion of Britain. You will play as Ava, a Viking raider who becomes embroiled in the conflict between the Brotherhood of Assassins and the Templar Order. Ava can be played as either male or female, which I feel is a nice touch. There is a setting in the menu, which allows you to select the recommended version for the story, which will see you switch between the two during the various story missions. This is explained pretty well during the story scenes set during the present time, so the male-female switch isn't too jarring if you choose to play this way. You do have the choice, however, to pick one or the other if you want to see the game from a single perspective. The game begins with the inevitable raid gone bad, the familiar story of having pretty much lost everything and being forced to start over with nothing. I won't go into the details of how the story progresses because I don't want to spoil anything for you, but I would quite happily say that the story is really enjoyable, especially if you enjoy Vikings. In fact, it reminded me very much of the series Vikings when playing the game, so if you enjoyed that, then you'll definitely like this. Personally, I love this particular era, the Viking raids. The lore is fascinating. That is of course personal preference, but for me it's a definite win. For the gameplay, let me start by saying it's good. I do have some criticisms, none of which should necessarily put you off completely, but I want to mention a few things here. So we'll start with the combat. The combat I found personally to be really fun at first. When you begin the game, you don't have the ability to pull off the typical Assassin's Creed style assassinations. You're forced to fight it out like the rest of us peasants. You'll benefit from learning to time your dodges well and pull off your parry timing. If you can get those two things down, then you'll most likely really enjoy the combat. A good parry can break your opponent's posture and you'll be able to perform a finisher. All of the finishes, by the way, are pretty brutal, which of course I love. Eventually, after a couple of hours gameplay, you'll be taught how to pull off the assassinations, and you can, if you choose, aim at being an assassin more than a fighter. But the gameplay seems to lend itself to more combat-based gameplay. The assassinations, whilst easy to pull off, are, at least to begin with, difficult to do whilst avoiding further confrontation. As you progress through the game, you will gain levels and you will be able to invest in those skill points. Now here is where I both love and hate the progression in Assassin's Creed Valhalla. I'm really torn. The progression is strange. From the perspective of skills alone, the progression feels very good. You gain 2 skill points each time you level up. You can invest those skills in the skill tree and it automatically raises your power level, but also gives you bonuses to different areas of your gameplay such as light or heavy attack damage, damage while in stealth, defense or evasion. You can also invest in bonuses to the various armor sets you're wearing. Each of the skill tree nodes are centered around a major skill for your character. These might be the ability to set a trap or drop the equivalent of a smoke bomb, for example. One thing I'm really undecided on is how the skill tree is set out. At first I loved the idea of it. Different areas of the skill tree are unlocked as you invest points, but the branches all seem to be very muddled. You might want to be an archer, for example, so you pick what you think is a good direction to start moving in. But then you realise that half of the points you're forced to invest won't help you in your build, and then when you uncover the next node along, you realise that the central skill in that node is completely useless to you. Don't get me wrong, I love having all the choices. I also love the fact that you can respec your character at any time by resetting your skill points with no cost. The problem comes when you reset your skill points and then you have to try again, attempting to uncover a different path for your character, potentially taking a wrong turn on the skill path and then having to start back from the beginning. It can be a little frustrating at first if you have a very specific gameplay style in mind. There are skills, for example, that I wanted to play with, but I would be forced to pick up bonuses for an armor set that I still hadn't found after 30 hours gameplay. Then while attempting to find a different path to that skill, I might be forced to pick up bonuses to poison damage, which I had no intention of using. Finding the perfect path to skills you want is a game of trial and error. Eventually I'm sure there will be optimal builds uncovered, but to begin with, for me at least, I found this frustrating. For more casual gamers playing a couple of hours a day, this won't stop you from making progress in the game, which I think is good. The nature of the different nodes is that it forces you to pick up some all-round skill points that will allow you to function. But my nature is about finding things that synergise well, and picking up sub-optimal choices along the way to where I want to go. Frustrated me a little bit. Not the end of the world, but worth a mention. One thing again I was torn about was the loot system. That is to say, there isn't one, in the traditional RPG sense. There are armour sets and weapons to pick up, but these are very limited. You won't find loot drops from enemies with a variation of stats and bonuses. You have to find the individual armour pieces and weapons in locations around the world. For each one you'll actually need to find it at the location, and some of the puzzles can be pretty tricky and time consuming, which again, for casual gamers, might be quite frustrating. For example, if you wanted to make a character with a spear, you might need to invest something like 20 hours of gameplay before you actually find one. That's what happened to me. Now yes, you could race ahead to a certain area of the game after looking up where to find your first spear, but if you want to immerse yourself in the world and the story, then this isn't ideal. Additionally, the blacksmith can't craft weapons for you, he can only help you to upgrade them. Each of the weapons and armour pieces can be upgraded in quality, and you will be able to add runes to the pieces to give you various bonuses to certain damage or defensive stats. Along your journey, again through finding secrets and solving puzzles, you'll pick up some active skills that you can use when you have unlocked the adrenaline points with your skill tree. Again, finding those can be a pain. The active skills are either for ranged combat or for melee. You can equip 4 of each to your active skill bar. They are easy to weave into your combat rotation, and some of them are incredibly useful for different combat scenarios. Very fun to use I found, but frustrating to find in some cases. In terms of the movement around the world, this is really well designed. You can access your shortcut bar while you are at a river to call your longboat, you can set a destination on the map and have your crew row you there pretty quickly. The same can be said on land. You can summon your horse and set it to auto travel to the location you want as long as you are following a road or path. While auto travelling, it is worth noting that your horse will not run out of stamina, which means you can get to places much more quickly. Now, when you progress a little into the game, there are of course areas in the game which offer you a recommended power level, so you shouldn't really go there until you're at least close, or you're likely to get destroyed by the enemies in the area. However, I found that in some locations where I was over the recommended level, there would be wandering enemies on the roads who out-leveled me by miles. This meant that when travelling from one point to another, I might get ambushed and one-shotted by these guys, which again I found frustrating. I eventually found a way to beat them, either by luring them into a trap when they were chasing me, or by cheesing them completely with a combination of my skills, but I don't feel like I should need to play that way. Having a recommended level for an area, but then having enemies roaming around which out-level the area by a huge amount can make for an unpleasant gameplay experience. Please don't misunderstand me, I know I've talked in a somewhat negative way about the game at points, but I want to say that it is very good. The game is fun, engrossing, involved, deep and very enjoyable, but I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't point out some areas of the gameplay that you might not be on board with. So now we'll talk about the PS4 performance and some of the bugs. This is specifically on the standard PS4, so if you're a PS4 Pro guy or girl, you may find a slightly different situation. On the standard PS4, the game does look good overall, but there are some problems. Some of the textures are lacking in some areas, the draw distance at time is quite limited, and there are pop-ins occasionally too. That is to say, you might uncover an area only to see some textures or items pop in a few seconds later. Again, none of this is game breaking, and personally I tend to be quite forgiving when it comes to things like this. I don't let it ruin the game for me, but I know that some people may find this to be a deal breaker and will want to wait to see the game in its full glory on the PS5. There are some bugs too which I found, but I would hope that these will eventually be patched out. I found one toward the end of my gameplay showcase video with a magical floating horse. I've had cutscenes on some of the subquests which were very weird. While talking to one character I found on a hillside who was ranting and shouting at passers-by, he stopped to talk to me normally, but didn't stop waving his arms around as if he was still screaming. Again, these bugs didn't ruin the game for me. I actually found some of them pretty funny, but they do break your immersion in the game and snap you back to reality for a moment, which some people may find to be a deal breaker. I want to say again, however, none of the criticisms I've stated have broken the game for me or stopped me from enjoying it. It is a very good game and incredibly fun to play. There are of course DLCs to look forward to, and I'm sure future patches will help to improve the bumps in the road. I hope you found this useful. Leave me a like and comment if you don't mind, sub if you're new, and I'll wrap it up there. Thank you for watching, take care, stay safe, bye bye now.